In today's video, we're going to be talking about multiple Arctic blasts that we expect now in the eastern United States. Each one getting colder and colder and colder. This is going to be a pretty shocking event because we're going to really get into some deep cold that is much more like November, late November into December type temperatures, as we're going to be around the midpoint of October, dealing with extreme cold as each Arctic blast is more potent than the last. We have about 3 or 4 coming up in the upcoming 10-day pattern, which is a lot for a 10-day pattern. Just taking a look at our current radar imagery, we do have some storminess here across the south central and 4 corner states of the United States. This was happening also yesterday morning, continuing into this morning. So no huge surprise there. Some heavier activity happening near southern Texas, also near Oklahoma as well there. We can see some of this happening in Nebraska as well. Now we do have a low that is bringing some interesting weather here to the northeast and some of the Great Lakes as well. Some lake effect rainfall happening here across the western regions of the lakes, and then we have a lot of warmer activity here in the northeast, bringing some heavier showers for these regions, and even some snowfall here in North Dakota and Minnesota. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Let's start down in the southern United States here. And for the 4 corner states in the south central United States here, we have plenty of these showers happening in these regions here. Again, a bit heavier in some spots. We'll take a look at a couple of those spots real quickly. But down here in southern Texas, we see some thunderstorm looking activity. And also here near Oklahoma, New Mexico, and kind of this region of Texas. I guess that'd be the panhandle of Texas, right? Not this one. It's this area up here, I think, is the panhandle of Texas. So around that region, Amarillo in general, Lubbock as well down there. Lubbock. I don't know why I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Lubbock. I guess. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's Lubbock. Now, up here in Nebraska, we do have this random spot of showers here, kind of exclusive for the state of Nebraska. Going to be heading into northern Kansas as well here. It is a bit heavier in some spots. Again, we do have some snowfall showers happening overnight here for areas in North Dakota and Minnesota. Now, the DBZ on this, which is how we measure the radar colors here, is extremely low. This darker gray is indicating very, very light snowfall, if any. So I wouldn't be surprised if none of this is making it to the ground, although this is early in the season, so there is more moisture in the air in general. So I wouldn't also be surprised if it is making it to the ground either. So let me know if you are somehow in North Dakota and you somehow are under where the snowfall is happening, and let me know if there is actually snowfall falling there. Now, we do see this lake effect rainfall, like I mentioned, and this is happening because of deep, deep, deep Arctic air moving over these regions. Again, we have a low here, so what's happening is the winds are moving like this. It's forcing the air here from Canada down through these regions, and we can see the upward motion to the east of this cold front here. Again, that low pressure system moving in a counterclockwise fashion, and the cold front is extending just like this. So areas east of that cold front are moving very quickly northward with that warm wind. Areas to the west of that cold front are dealing with very deep Arctic air, and the wind is moving from the north to the south there. We can clearly see this happening here on radar. This is one of those interesting examples where it's very easy for even the naked eye to see these features. Really cool stuff there. And in general, I guess we're mostly quieter outside of that. So what we're going to do is move on and probably focus on what you clicked this video for, the upcoming pattern, because there is a lot of crazy stuff to talk about, including, again, those extreme Arctic blasts that are going to bring the coldest air of the season. Probably each one will bring the coldest air of the season, and then the next one after it will top the other one. From what I'm seeing on this model run. Now, usually we start with the storminess, but we're going to start with the temperatures here since that's the main focus of the video. It's important to note that there will be plenty of nor'easter potential with this pattern as we see the Arctic blasts and in general big troughs heading into the eastern United States. With those cold fronts, there is a few opportunities for some big coastal storms. So stay tuned for the later portion of this video. We will talk about that. Also some snowfall and some interesting spots. So there's a couple of interesting things towards the end there. This is the past 30 days. So why I find this interesting is that's most of the fall so far. Meteorological fall starts on September 1st. So we'll go over the 7 days in September that we're missing here. Or 7 or so days. But really we have warm temperatures throughout the central and western United States over the past 30 days, almost the entirety of fall. And we can see that there has been primarily cold air here in the eastern third of the nation, I would say, basically from uh, about the Mississippi River eastward, but a few areas west of there are also seeing some cold temperatures there. In the 7 days in September here, we're pretty neutral in general for these regions. So overall, if you take a look at the past 37 days, which would be almost, I think it literally is the entirety of fall. September might have 31 days, so it might, we might be missing one day here. I'm not entirely sure, but basically you can be almost guaranteed that the past 37 or 38 days that is the entire fall so far has been below normal in the eastern United States. So why that's important is because now as we're talking about all the way through the mid to late point of October, we're going to be talking about 2/3 of the fall season, which is almost guaranteeing us that we're going to see a below average fall overall here in the eastern United States. The last time that happened, I can remember that it felt like that happened was maybe 2013 to 2014, and that winter was very brutal. But I do remember here in Virginia, I remember really cold temperatures. I also remember sleet and snow as early as November, which for Virginia is quite early. So I do remember that vividly. And then I also remember multiple December snow days, which is pretty early still for Virginia. And another one I remember is 2010, which was the Boxing Day blizzard that December. But I remember as a kid, I was 10 in 2010. I'm now 22, by the way. I never talk about that, but I'm 22. In 2010, I remember well before Halloween, the leaves had completely fallen off the trees because I remember people raking on Halloween Day. I vividly remember that, which for Virginia is earlier than normal, which means probably we had a colder fall. I wasn't really paying attention back then. But that winter also ended up being a pretty crazy one that people usually look back towards. So just naming a few anomalies there and analogs that off the bat I'm thinking of. We can see this Arctic blast right now, supercharged and ready to just head into the eastern United States. We have neutral temperatures right now. It's been pretty average, I would say, in the eastern United States. A little bit warmer yesterday, and the high temperatures today are going to be a little bit warmer as well. But after today, so here's the high temperatures here, so you can see along the eastern seaboard and the Gulf states there, warmer than normal conditions for a lot of areas down there in the Gulf states. Again, eastern United States, up and down the eastern seaboard there. But we can see for the upper Midwest, up through the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, we have this really brutal cold Arctic blast really coming through with a cold front extending right about here. That same one we saw in the current radar conditions. It comes through overnight, so this is the nighttime, and it comes through, and by the time we reach the next day's high temperatures, somewhere in here, we have really far below normal temperatures here for a lot of the eastern United States. As we head overnight that night, we could see still cooler temperatures overall. Again, nothing record-breaking here with this first one, but we are going to be seeing a lot of 60s and 50s for folks. A lot of temperatures colder than they were yesterday, which was Thursday. Today, which is Friday. This has been far above normal temperatures, so we've seen upper 70s here in Virginia, for instance. You've probably noticed it's been a little bit warmer yesterday and today, but as we keep going on with this, we see these cooler temperatures start to dwindle off. It's more near normal at this point by the time we're reaching about Tuesday, October 11th. So pretty much now looking towards the next 4 days, neutral to below normal temperatures in the eastern United States is pretty much what's expected. We do get a bit of a warm-up here happening by the time we're reaching Wednesday the 12th. Even into the 13th here, we see really far above normal temperatures happening. It's pretty normal for there to be these warm air masses in between Arctic blasts. Obviously, we can't have just Arctic blasts, a train of Arctic blasts literally just coming in all connected like a chain. It doesn't work like that. So there is these warm-ups in between. It's very regular. And that's what causes these cold fronts to be so violent when they come through with the storminess, the potential nor'easters. And we see the next one coming through here Thursday heading into Friday. That's the 13th heading into the 14th here. And we see really, really deep cold. So again, this one looks a lot colder than the one prior to it that we're having happening in a couple of days. So this is Friday the 14th here. We see this one really, really working its way in. And really far below normal temperatures can be expected with this one. Now, by the time I reach Saturday here, Saturday the 15th, we see, again, fairly far below normal temperatures here along the eastern United States. That's the 15th, but we can already see our next one heading in, but we see the warm air in between. We see that warm air in between. So for Sunday, and look, I said they can't be connected like chain link, but it looks like these two are. So I misspoke here. Every time I say something like that, I end up getting corrected. There is a little bit of warmth in between, I will say, to try to defend myself here. I don't know if this will happen like this. I've never seen cold air masses be this connected. I guess there is plenty of warm air in between. It looks very connected, but this one is even more brutal than the one before it. Keep in mind this is the longer range, so take it with a grain of salt. But look at all that green. That's 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Very significant departure from normal. And again, towards the end of the model run here, we're fully engaged in a massive Arctic blast here for a lot of these regions here in the eastern United States. And we have a lot of warmer temperatures heading up the west coast there with a positive PNA. This is the main driver here in our pattern, and it forces this cold air to move around that warm air mass, and that's why we've seen for the past month plus these major Arctic blasts heading into the eastern United States. Now, finally, let's take a look at some of that storminess here. As we take a look at it, we're just going to find a few major events here. We see this cold front coming through with this next Arctic blast, not the one happening like today, tomorrow timeframe, but the one after it here. We actually have a pretty strong low, 985 up here, in a cold front developing all the way west towards Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming there. We see this continue on, and it becomes even more potent here. Still a 985 actually up here in Canada, but we can see it stretching down for portions of the Midwest up through the Great Lakes as well. We also see quite a bit of energy heading up through the Gulf. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a pretty decent severe weather setup, actually, with the strong cold front and then this warm air bringing the storminess down there. I would love to take a look at the Cape, but I don't have that pulled up. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a severe weather threat with this, if it happened just like this European model is showing it. We see this hit the eastern United States. It really just explodes with storminess here. In the eastern United States, we could see this Arctic blast just diving into the eastern United States. And this is one of those frames where I wouldn't be surprised if a nor'easter, and we even have a low here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a pretty decent nor'easter in a setup like this that's moving along that jet stream. There is plenty of storminess to go around, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen whatsoever. Now, the next one, we get a 993 millibar low pressure center up here in Canada. We have this next one moving through. We can tell this one is a lot deeper. There's plenty of snowfall up there in the upper Midwest happening. And this one just dives down, and we see plenty of snowfall for the Great Lakes. Potentially our first lake effect snowfall event here for states like Michigan there, Wisconsin, maybe even areas further south. It just depends. I mean, we see New York here in Pennsylvania getting some lake effect snowfall, maybe Ohio as well, as that cold is, again, the deepest cold of the season. I mean, surely here, this is the coldest air of the season that we see diving into the United States. And I mean, if we were to get a nor'easter along this, I would not be surprised if this was a decent setup for a snowstorm somewhere here in the very far interior northeast and potentially Canada. The setup would be there, but again, this is 240 hours out, so we take this with a grain of salt, but that setup is pretty interesting to say the least. All right, now quickly let's go over the rainfall and the snowfall. Total rainfall here, no surprise, we're seeing amounts kind of increase here in the eastern United States with the potential for nor'easters. Also, the multiple cold fronts coming through with precipitation. Some cold fronts have no precipitation, some are pretty dry, and then some have major storminess. That one we see, there's 3 cold fronts mainly that we see in this 10-day period. The middle one is the one that we really see a lot of storminess with. If you're anywhere in the whites, we're seeing practically no precipitation. Your grays will be 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. No surprise here, our snowfall is looking a lot less for the Rockies and the West in general, as we have no precipitation and really not a whole lot of cold air heading that way now. According to the models, this has been a huge flip from what this model was saying just 2 days ago. I still wouldn't be surprised to see this switch back, although we've been so stuck in this pattern. Usually 9 times out of 10 you continue with the pattern you're in. Eventually it does break, but you know, it's usually safer to assume that it's going to continue unless there's a strong flip indication, and right now we don't have that yet. There's no reason for it to not continue doing what it's been doing, which is, all the cold air heading to the eastern United States. The one thing as a snow and cold lover that I'm afraid of is that we're so stuck in this cold pattern now. I wonder if we're going to flip at the wrong time, December, January timeframe, where it's all going to head to the western United States and we get a big ridge in the east. Maybe that's just the trauma that I've been through over the past 10 years as a snow and cold lover in the eastern United States. I don't really know, but I'm very afraid of that, I would say. The grays here are going to be a dusting. If anything, your blues are 2 to 6 inches of snowfall, and your purples are 6 to 10. As you can see up there in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, we get plenty of those 2 to 6 inch amounts there for some spots with that lake effect later on in the model run. Take it with a grain of salt, like I said. And there is some purples scattered about in there. That's also 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. So maybe some major early season snowfall. To me, anything between 6 and 10 for fall time is certainly major for these regions. Even a dusting possible for some of the New York lake regions there. Very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, we upload daily, so we're going to be going over this every single day. Be sure to subscribe for daily uploads on these upcoming patterns. We've been doing this for 4 years. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So if you want to stay basically informed about the next 10 days, constantly, be sure to subscribe for those daily videos. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video.